Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dharma Helper and this is DH Reviews. This is my Season 1 Episode 12 review of Scorpion. If you missed any of my other Scorpion reviews, there will be a link in the description of this video as well as an annotation behind me on the screen. You can click either of those and they will take you right to the Scorpion playlist that has all of my videos in it. If you're interested in my thoughts on any of the other series that I review Constantine, I review Gotham, I review Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'm going to be reviewing some other stuff coming up here very soon. I'll put my my reviews of those shows in the description as well if you want to check those shows out and you want to check my thoughts on those shows out. I'll put the playlist in the description of this video as well. With that being said, Season 1, Episode 12 of Scorpion was called Dominoes, and in this holiday-themed episode, the main sort of story is that there's a kid trapped in a rock slide in the beach, and the team is racing to try and get him out before he drowns and before he suffocates and before he basically dies. And the side story to that is dealing a lot with the fallout to deal with Sylvester and his sort of emotionality and the things that he's going through. We get a little bit more about Happy and her father in this episode. And speaking about fathers and stuff, Drew and Paige and Ralph, we get a little bit more in that sort of storyline in this episode. But the main thing in this episode was rescuing that kid and making sure that that kid was safe. So that's the story of the episode. Let's talk about the characters, and let's begin with Sylvester. In this episode, Sylvester, again, wrestles with a lot of his doubt and his fears and his phobias in the episode. Not only that, he's got a fear of claustrophobia, a fear of drowning, a fear of tight spaces, and that sort of hinders him. But again, in the last episode, he almost died, so he's still reeling from that and his sort of struggle to find his footing and find a safe place where he can do his calculations, because his calculations in this episode are below average, below what he would normally put out. And that's all being affected by the fact that he's got this high EQ that we keep hearing about. You know, over the course of the series, they talk about EQ and IQ, and Sylvester's got this high EQ, too much EQ, and that sort of impacts his performance in this episode, and he's get all that doubt that he's dealing with, and he deals with that. He overcomes that with the help of Megan, Walter's sister. And the two of them, again, sort of have that chemistry on screen. And rather than sort of coddling him and boosting him up in a positive sort of way and saying, oh, you're going to be okay, you're smart, you're this and that, Megan kind of kicks him in the butt a little bit, kind of lights a fire under his butt. And that was something that I was kind of impressed to see, that she sort of gives him that tough love and says, you know, this kid is counting on you. You have all these fears. Imagine what he's feeling. He's actually living that kind of stuff. So you have to get your ass in gear and kind of, you know, help out. And we saw a flash of what I've been hoping to see from Sylvester since the beginning of the series in this episode, when he holds that rock wall up by himself and says, you know, move the machine, I'll hold the rock wall, you move the EKG or the EK, whatever the heck they were using to help him out, help the little kid out. And, you know, that was something that I wanted to see so badly from Sylvester over the course of the season, over the course of this first half of the season, was that flash of courage and the idea that he can contribute in a meaningful way and overcome a lot of his fears and his phobias. And I'm very, very glad that we got to see that this episode. And that's sort of all I wanted to talk about all I wanted to talk about Sylvester. And, you know, moving on, let's talk about Happy in this episode. As I said in the beginning, we get the resolution of that whole Happy and her father thing. And it turns out that her father sort of knew that it was her and was waiting for the right time for her to tell him. And so the resolution there was satisfying, and particularly so for a holiday episode, for an episode leading up to a break. It's nice to have that storyline wrapped up and in a satisfying way. And again, we saw a little bit of the emotionality of Happy and how she's sort of growing emotionally and opening up. And I want to see more about her and her father and that relationship as we move forward in the second half of the season. And more of her and Toby, and what this means for their relationship, what Happy opening up emotionally means for their relationship. Because remember, it was Toby that kind of kicked her in the butt and said, you have a father, and you have people who love you, and you need to welcome that in your life. Not only me, Toby saying, I love you and I want to be in your life, and in that sort of roundabout, sly way that he's been doing that. But he says, you've got this dad, and imagine what would happen if this little boy died and his parents didn't get there in time, or they didn't say all they wanted to say, or all this sort of stuff that was out in the open. So it was Toby that sort of set her on this path. And that is as I've been saying in my reviews, this grand gesture that's going to be important in cementing Toby and Happy as having a relationship. And so the repercussions from that and the fallout from that is going to be interesting to explore in the second half of the season with Happy and Toby and their relationship. So that's them for this episode, and I want to talk very briefly about Paige in this episode. And let's start off by talking about Paige and Drew and Ralph. And Paige talks about in this episode how Drew left to go scout with some team, and Toby has that comment where he says, "Oh, surprise, it's Christmas time," and rather than be with his son, he went off and went to this baseball tryout. And honestly, I'm not really surprised about that. Drew has been a jerk and kind of a sleazebag ever since he came into the series, and he's falling back into that old habit of putting his career and himself before his family. And especially during Christmas, you don't do that. And so I think that's going to be a contributing factor for Ralph and for Paige in deciding, that question of, do we go with Drew? Do we go with Walter? I think what happened in this episode was Drew showed his true colors. He doesn't put anybody before himself in his career. And we're going to see the fallout from that here in the second half of the season. Paige, also in this episode, is again showing off her motherly aspects, and not only being a mother to the team and keeping the team on track, and we're saying we're going to celebrate Christmas, we're going to unwind, we're going to be a family, we're going to have fun, and doing it that way, but being a mother to this little boy who's scared and alone and trapped inside this rock slide, and offering that emotional side to it, where the rest of the team is sort of mechanically trying to figure out, okay, how do we get him out? What's wrong with him? He's got a punctured lung. How do we dig in this tunnel without killing him, and all this stuff and all the calculations and all this stuff that's just going through their heads. Paige is sort of the level-headed, calm, okay, we have to keep this kid calm. We have to keep him relaxed. Let's talk about, Christmas. Let's keep his mind off things. And Paige being the mother of the team and sort of guiding the emotional aspect of the team is really just shining in this episode, and I want to see more of that moving into the second half of the season. And it's really impressive to see her sort of maintain a very calm, a very cool mentality. Again, when you consider that she's, she was a waitress a few episodes ago. And so, again, her contribution to the team is that emotional aspect. Keeping everybody on point, keeping everybody relaxed and calm and understanding of each other. And her contribution to the team was really important in this episode. And so that's Paige for the episode. I guess what we can do to wrap up my thoughts for characters in this episode, we can talk very briefly about Walter. He has an emotional episode. He talks to the kid and helps the kid fly his kite, and then the kid gets trapped. So he kind of feels obligated and responsible, maybe, or it's difficult to tell with him, you know. And in this episode, he gets emotional, but I think the important thing here is that he doesn't let his emotions stop him from solving the problem and get in his way and cloud his mind. So he feels those emotions of anger or frustration or whatever you want to call it. You know, he's shouting at the beach and stuff, but he doesn't let that stop him from seeing very clearly what's in front of him. Whereas you or I or somebody else like Sylvester might get distracted by these emotions. I think the distinction here is that he feels these emotions, but he's not distracted so much by them. And we saw that in this episode where he's very agitated, but he's able to keep himself focused. And then, you know, he talks about all this stuff about, you know, let them have their miracle. And I thought that was interesting. And I thought, again, that speaks to his development and his evolution as a character, where he says, rather than explaining to them the science of how they were able to keep this kid alive, they recognize that it's Christmas and people need that sort of, you know, uplifting stuff. And it's a better story in terms of, you know, uplifting and everything like that if they just say, it was a miracle, you know, Christmas miracle, he survived, everybody wins. And then kind of wrapping up my thoughts on Walter, the one critique that I had about this episode is I understand that it's sort of based on a true life story and Walter O'Brien is a real person and all this stuff, but the news coverage over the course of the episode was basically, you know, local smart person Walter O'Brien does something really brave. Local smart person Walter O'Brien does something really smart. Local smart person Walter O'Brien is so cool. And I could have done with a little bit less of that, or maybe a little bit more of, you know, Team Scorpion is working to solve this problem. Team Scorpion is really cool. Team Scorpion is really smart, rather than local smart person Walter O'Brien does something really remarkable. And that was really the critique or the nitpick that I had for this episode, was that it seemed a little too focused on Walter's contribution to it all, when you know, Happy was building the winch, Toby was, you know, keeping the kid calm and understood that he had a punctured lung because of all that stuff on his neck. Sylvester did a lot. Paige did a lot. So it was really a group effort, and I feel like they focused a little too much on Walter's contribution. And I understand that Walter did a lot, but the team also contributed as well. And I feel like the show kind of put Walter in the spotlight, on the pedestal, but that's really a nitpick and not something that I can really get too messed up about. So that'll do it for the characters review. Let's talk very briefly about my overall thoughts on the episode. Very good episode. You know, it's sort of typical holiday themed episode. I did enjoy, you know, the resolutions that we got from Happy's father to Sylvester sort of coming into his own again and really rebounding off of that trauma that he experienced last episode. And I think this next half of the season is going to have some interesting stuff to explore in terms of Megan and Sylvester, Drew and Paige, Happy and Toby. It's got a lot of interesting stuff that they're setting up, that they're adding on to the series here. So overall, pretty solid episode, and I enjoyed it. So that'll do it for the review, guys. If you enjoyed the episode, let me know in the comments section or on Twitter at the DH Reviews. If you like this review, thumbs up, give me a like so I know I'm headed in the right direction, and we can. It really helps me out a lot, guys, when you thumbs up the videos and comment and stuff like that. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and welcome to the channel. I welcome everybody who subscribes, and I appreciate everything that you guys do in terms of support. Share these videos, get these videos out there on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and we can really grow the channel moving into the second half of a lot of these shows and a lot of these seasons that we're reviewing. The next major thing that you guys can look out for on the channel is my Agent Carter Season 1 live stream. It's going to be on Saturday, January 10th, the week of the premiere. Agent Carter premieres on the 6th, so we're going to be I'm going to be watching it and reviewing it live on the 10th. With all that being said, guys, thanks very much for all of your support in this first half of the channel and in this first half of the seasons for these shows that we're reviewing. Thanks very much for everything that you guys have been doing, and I hope to see you guys very soon. Have a very happy holiday, and I will see you guys in the next video.